Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. It's spring, the season of renewal or resurgence. So, here at the Office of the Patriot, I figured I'd follow suit. To start, we have one hell of a show for you today, to include a discussion about an Indiana high school student who thumbed his nose at the school administration by standing up for his constitutional right to display the American flag on his truck while on school property. Next, it appears that there is some internal turmoil within the bowels of MSNBC. The pundit turds were farting their distaste of a new hire, former RNC chair Ronna McDaniels. And it didn't last long because she was let go just a short 48 hours later. I guess the farting paid off. In legislative news, we have MTG submitting a motion to vacate House Speaker Mike Johnson, basically because he's a liar. And finally, we have Donald Trump resetting the news cycle once again in his epic New York appeals court win in the civil fraud case ruling. All of this and just a bit more in this episode of Office of the Patriot. Counterpoint. It's a musical technique that uses two harmonically independent compositions and combines them together where they become interdependent in the new composition. Some would argue greater than each of their independent melodies. This same idea can be used when presenting an issue to create contrasting views within a topic. The views don't necessarily need to be opposing. In fact, ideologies that are parallel are usually not mirror images of each other. They can be independent yet complementary when combined, and they can paint a more complete picture of the idea at hand. To that end, the Office of the Patriot is expanding in an effort to reach a more broad-based audience. It will still remain true to the founding principle of highlighting social and political events through a constitutional lens. But now, ideas that were once one-dimensional can be presented in a multifaceted way. And to that end, I would like to welcome the additional facet to the Office of the Patriot, Mr. Mike Hagrela, more affectionately known as Angry Mike. Hey, Mike.
How's it going, Myron? Thanks for having me on.
Go
So
ahead.
I know you call me Angry Mike, and that's fine. I'm not always angry, just to let people know. But the moniker works, I guess. So you know me pretty well. We've known each other for what, a good 15, 16 years now.
About that, yeah, about that.
I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I'm more than capable of keeping my emotions in check, and I'll try to keep the colorful language to a minimum.
Well, I mean, that's kind of why we have you here in the first place. So that's actually a good thing. So again, we've been friends for quite some time. I know a lot about you, but the audience really doesn't. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so have a little intro. So in a nutshell, I guess you could say I was a hardcore raging leftist, as some people call them. I was a Democrat ever since I started voting. That was back in 1988, and grew up in a Democrat household, so that was kind of a given. That's kind of why I voted Democrat. So I've always voted party line all the way up through Barack Obama's first term, and that's when I kind of got a little bit disillusioned. A lot of the things that when he was campaigning, he said he would do, he didn't do.
That's par for a politician, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He kind of set this. He kind of set himself up for failure, though. He set really high expectations, and he just couldn't meet them. But taxation, that was about the time when I started making a decent living. I was making a good salary, so I felt my taxes were going through the roof. I felt that pinch. So that was kind of the first thing that kind of irked me, because it was affecting me directly. The high taxation, the more money you make, the more you feel like you're being penalized. So that's kind of when I started voicing my dissatisfaction to you and some other closer friends, and you kind of deprogram me in a way, I guess. Not so much that it was the Republican Party was the alternative, because Um, as most of us know, the two-party system is pretty bad.
Agreed.
Both parties are very corrupt. We consider it a uniparty system, and yeah, so I just became really frustrated and kind of disillusioned. You and another friend showed me a lot of libertarian principles, which were awesome, and I still hold those very closely. Um, so that's kind of like the bridge between the two parties, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Um,
Absolutely.
so fast forward to, like, 2012, 2013 is when you started to really see that I was changing. I remember you were talking to me, our other friend Jason. You also mentioned, hey, it seems like you really come around. You're not a hardcore, leftist. You still have some views that we disagree with. So, I mean, even to this day, I think there's still a few things that I struggle with. Uh, Mostly the fact that I think the most people are dumb. So that was kind of why I always felt like government needed to step in to control people, because they were not most people were not smart enough to make the correct decisions. So for the greater good of society, if you will, I felt government force was a necessary evil, and most people, made
Yeah, no,
terrible decisions. So
I get it. I mean, that's one of the, that's one of the backsides of freedom, and we've had that conversation with them a couple of times. It's the, allowing people to make those decisions, make those mistakes. Freedom's on bumper stickers all the time. You see it where,
yeah,
oh, freedom's not free, and honestly, that's all that stuff is garbage. But the bottom line is
exactly.
freedom relies on tolerance, and if you don't have tolerance, then honestly, you can't have freedom. So, but anyway, let's get into this. Again, we're so glad to have you on the program.
Happy to be
And
here.
we have quite a few topics we're going to go through. So, let's move forward into this overzealous high school administration, who was dealing with a kid who they believe didn't know his constitutional rights as it relates to flying the American flag on his personal vehicle on school property. And I'm going to move to the video to show you what happened.
He's like, the school has a right to request that you remove the flag off the back of your vehicle. I said, you're right, but since it's just a request, I'm gonna decline your request.
Cameron Blazik said school admin asked him twice to remove it, and twice he stood his ground.
I had even read off to him the student handbook and all the guidelines in there. The word flag isn't even in there.
He says the school tried to say, since his truck was on school property, the school had the right to ask him to take it down. But word got around.
Left and right, I was getting messages, my phone was blown up, everybody going out and buying flags.
He says at least 24 students donned flags. The school apologized, adding students are allowed to fly an American flag.
In this incident, the vice principal of East Central High School in St. Leon, Indiana, ordered 17-year-old Cameron Blazik to remove the American flag from his truck because it could be viewed as offensive or controversial. And well, without the use of words, he basically told them to go fornicate themselves, because right after the meeting, he went out, bought himself a bigger flag, and put it on his truck. And then went out to social media to let the world know that his high school was basically reminiscent of a school in the CCP. I mean, come on, we're in America. He's an American, and this is the American flag we're talking about.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. So first and foremost, it seems like there's far too many people, primarily they seem to be left leaning, who they feel like maybe perhaps that our country, the United States of America, has been bullying the rest of the world for far too long. So we shouldn't be. They feel patriotism is kind of like continuation of being the bully on the world stage, if you will. So I think they kind of have a self-loathing problem, and it's primarily an issue on the left for Democrats and liberals in general. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember when we were young, when we were in school, I mean, they still have flags flying outside of schools. So I don't see what the problem is.
I mean, I remember when I was in school, I remember kids would pull up in their trucks, and this was in California, no less. Kids would pull up in their trucks, and they'd have a 870 Remington shotgun sitting in the back, right? And it was just commonplace.
Depending on the city.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. So I'll grant you that we were in at that time. I want to say it was Hemet, California, which is kind of remote, but nonetheless, it was in California. So yeah, it shows how much times have changed.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like they would have no problem. Well, in general, I think when they see that, like, a Mexican flag being flown or another country's flag, and this, recently the Palestinian flag, they're flying it all over the place. Nobody has a problem with that, but they have a problem with the American flag. So
yeah, again, it's the mixed messaging of the Democrat Party, right? They're trying to vilify the United States and utilize other countries, other nations, other cultural and ideological flags, symbols, if you will, to push a narrative. And ultimately, we both know that this narrative is absolutely designed to split Americans apart. The one thing, if you're in any other country, let's say you're in China or you're in Mexico, there is a cultural cohesiveness that each one of those people have in those countries, right? I mean, the food, the way they look, the way they, the culture, for the most part, how they pray. So there's a commonality. But here in the United States, we have so many cultures that it's really hard. So we had to find something for us to kind of bind ourselves to, right? There was nothing really there. And if you don't trust your neighbor, then, things are eventually going to fall apart. And so the idea was, we're going to move past all of the superficial cultural, skin color, all that stuff, and look at what all the people want that came over here. They want autonomy. They want freedom, the ability to live the best life that they can live within a set of rules. And the Democrats now have moved to an idea that they want to tear that apart. At least that's where I'm at, and I think that's one of the reasons why the American flag is so vilified. I love my American flag, and I'm very, very proud to have it adorn my wall here in the office of the Patriot. All right, next.
I feel patriotic every time I see a flag. So
absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. Okay, so next, it appears that MSNBC talent, or rather the talentless editorial pundits, are upset with their bosses giving former Rhino RNC chair Ronna McDaniel a paid spot at MSNBC. So let's watch Fox News morning show ladies from Outnumbered review the hiring of Ronna McDaniel and the unhinged meltdown from Joe Scarborough and his ilk at MSNBC.
NBC News is now facing major internal backlash over its decision to hire former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel. According to Politico, top brass unanimously supported the idea of bringing on McDaniel as a contributor, but some of the network's big names are not happy.
We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons.
We hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor.
Let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting, have been met with character assassination.
First, McDaniel was unceremoniously booted from the RNC chair position. Okay, she resigned, but it wasn't of her own volition. It was the result of her lack of performance as it relates to the 2020 and 2022 election cycle, and her reluctance to acknowledge the election interference in the 2020 election by Democrats. What's strange here is that she should be welcomed with open arms by the staff at MSNBC, because she was, in my own humble opinion, one of the reasons there was no red wave in the 2022 midterms. Now, just a short 48 hours later, MSNBC caved to their employees and fired McDaniel before she even got started.
Yeah, yeah. So much for the party of tolerance, right? They always claim to be tolerant, and they prove the opposite every single time. When they get pushed, they completely lose their shit. And pardon my French, but yeah. So I think it's a good thing for them to have outed themselves, if you will, by doing this so publicly. I mean, it looks horrible for them. It looks really bad for the Democrats in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think
just acting the way they did, like children throwing a temper tantrum, and then of course the executives caved in. So as much as we both kind of dislike Ronna McDaniel for her terrible, performance as chair, yeah, it's just they're so dishonest. They claim to have these right wing, pundits and journalists on their show, like what's his name, Steele, Joe Scarborough.
Scarborough is definitely
These
not
guys are classic
Republican.
rhinos, and they're Republicans in name only, rhinos.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're never Trumpers. They absolutely hate Trump, and they still can't understand how so many people voted for him in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, we have here, there's twofold problem. One, like you briefly mentioned, we have the issue with the MSNBC staff, one, letting her go 48 hours later. So we know there's going to be contract issues. But more than that, you have the MSNBC pundits who were trash talking this woman, basically saying that they weren't going to allow her on their programs, and some off the wall reasons as to why, which is going to make it very difficult for her to get any work anywhere else. So looking at it from just a financial state, I think they kind of screw themselves. And I would not be surprised to see the her attorney going after them for libel, slander, or whatever other mechanisms they choose to go ahead and try to get some payback from MSNBC. But more importantly, and you brought that up just a little bit, where you were talking about, I'm not a big Fox News fan. I mean, ever since they let Tucker Carlson go, I pretty much the only thing I ever watched there now is Outnumbered. And one of the issues I have, it used to irritate me watching some of the people like, I'm trying to think of her name, Tarlov. They had these Democrats, and they were like extreme leftist Democrats, especially
Jessica Tarlov.
Yeah. So yeah, and they still have them on, and I understand why they're there, and honestly, they are necessary. I mean, I don't hold them in a lot of high regard, but they are necessary because they again paint a complete picture for the American public. So that way you have a contrasting view to a conservative view. So you have Kayleigh McEnany on one bench, and you have Tarlov on the other bench, and there's quite a few of these Democrats that they bring on. And the idea behind that is for people to be able to see, perspectives from, I mean, in this case, two, diametrically opposed ideologies. But MSNBC and CNN don't appear to want to do that. And so as a, even if I was a Democrat, I'd be like, well, I mean, if our argument is so strong, why won't we allow people who have an opposing view to argue? And I think we both know the answer to that. So, yeah. Anyway, I'll let you close.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on Fox, I do watch some of the Fox. Occasionally, I don't watch them religiously. I watch them every once in a while. Greg Gutfeld. I watch. What was the gal you were mentioning earlier? She's with
Kayleigh McEnany, or
she's with
Harris Faulkner.
Harris Faulkner.
Yeah, Harris Faulkner.
They have to sit down on the couch, and they bring in
Outnumbered. Yeah.
Outnumbered. Yeah.
Outnumbered.
So I watched that, but yeah, I have seen they call it, the show is called The Five. It's with Greg Gutfeld usually. That girl Jessica Tarlov, she's usually the Democrat they have on there. They always have some Democrat. It's usually her or I forget the guy's name. He was in Congress. Anyway, they occasionally do shut her down. They kind of dogpile on her.
I've watched it. I mean, it is kind of funny.
Usually for a good reason, because some of her arguments are just ridiculous. And I'm
Agreed.
like, okay, it's kind of warranted, but I do feel bad. They shouldn't be doing that. They should let her speak.
Well, I mean, come on now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, here's the thing, and looking at it from just a strategic point, right? They brought her on, and so obviously she knows. Any of the Democrats know that they're going to be outnumbered. Pardon the pun. So you need to come prepared. And again, if your argument is sound, it doesn't matter how many voices are opposing you, because if they're wrong and you are right, then you should have. I mean, you could have a chorus, and it shouldn't really matter. So to that end, I don't really feel bad, especially when they get piled on, because sometimes if you are wrong. Especially if you're sitting in the audience and you see somebody that you advocated for and they have a opinion or they have a position on something, and then all of a sudden you see everyone else tearing them apart with legitimate arguments and verifiable facts, and now you're going to start thinking, well, maybe some of the other stuff that they've been saying is wrong too. So that bodes well for.
Absolutely. I mean, I usually agree with the vast majority of what they're dogpiling on her, if you will, but it's kind of hard to watch sometimes. I feel badly.
I get it. All right, so let's move up the ladder to the legislative body, where Marjorie Taylor Greene, aka MTG, drops a bombshell before the House goes into recess. In a news conference outside of the Capitol, she indicated that she filed a motion to vacate Speaker Mike Johnson because, according to MTG, Speaker Johnson has betrayed the conference and broken its rules.
Why did you file a motion to vacate?
Today I filed a motion to vacate after Speaker Johnson has betrayed our conference and broken our rules. We were promised regular order. That's what our conference had started out as, with rules and promises to the American people that we would bring regular order back to Congress. Speaker Johnson has betrayed that by passing 3 CRs and then forcing us to pass or to vote on a 2-part omnibus, the second one being today. He also only gave us, I don't even know, we had 1 day basically to read 1,012 pages, breaking the 72-hour rule. This is a betrayal of the American people. This is a betrayal of Republican voters. And the bill that we were forced to vote on forced Republicans to choose between funding to pay our soldiers and, in doing so, funding late-term abortion. This bill was basically a dream and a wish list for Democrats and for the White House. It was completely led by Chuck Schumer, not our Republican Speaker of the House, not our conference, and we weren't even allowed to put amendments to the floor to have a chance to make changes to the bill. I filed the motion to vacate today, but it's more of a warning and a pink slip. I respect our conference. I paid all my dues to my conference. I'm a member in good standing, and I do not wish to inflict pain on our conference and to throw the House in chaos. But this is basically a warning, and it's time for us to go through the process, take our time, and find a new Speaker of the House that will stand with Republicans and our Republican majority instead of standing with the Democrats.
Given what I heard in that announcement, I would agree with the filing of the motion to vacate. However, with MTG, there are a number of conservative pundits that feel that this is just a move on her part to try to consolidate power. Regardless of the intent, I believe she isn't wrong. The conference has assured the American people that no omnibus bills would ever be submitted or signed off by any Republican of the House. And in this case, 101 House Republicans did just that. They signed off on the omnibus funding bill, along with a majority of Democrats, which allowed it to pass the House. And this is crap, because this bill also contains funding for Ukraine, reduced funding for border security, and a number of other pork barrel projects the Uniparty, and you spoke to that earlier, is interested in maintaining. And they did it with the threat of a government shutdown as leverage to broker this bill through the House. So, Mike, what do you think about MTG's motion to vacate?
Yeah, I think she probably has the support of the vast majority of the country at this point, because people realize, I mean, even the stupid people realize that what we've been screaming about is going to be leading into massive inflation, the money printing, the deficit spending in the hundreds of billions, is actually in the trillions now. It's out of control, and it's when they keep doing these omnibus spending bills, it just makes it very easy for them to put in just a bunch of crap and then vote on it, because then the majority of them feel that they have to vote on something.
Absolutely.
So instead of splitting these up into separate spending bills, one for you, maybe one for Ukraine and Israel, or and Gaza, all that, put that in one bill. That's fine. You can combine those two. They should be separate, but everything should be separate, but they won't do it. So I think this is going to further. It's slow, but the House Freedom Caucus is gaining a lot of momentum because of people like Johnson, who just outed himself as a member of the Uniparty. He's part of the establishment.
I wholeheartedly agree.
He's no different from Kevin McCarthy at this point. He talked a good game, just like Kevin McCarthy. They both are masterful speakers. They're almost like on par with Barack Obama with their level of being able to manipulate the public, use the media, tell us everything we want to know, everything we want to hear, but they don't deliver.
Exactly.
So
I heard about that.
They're turncoats, you know.
Yeah. I spoke about this in a previous episode where I talked about there. You know, in my opinion, there should be some type of actual accountability. So, you know, if you lie to court, that's called perjury, right? So we're in court, I lie while I'm under oath, and that would be considered perjury. And there should be something along the same lines where we have an immediate effect to be able to get, you know, if you're a politician and you're running on a position and you fail to deliver or you outright lie, then there should be some type of consequence. Unfortunately, this is a slow-moving consequence. You know, it is just a motion. She has a lot of options with regard to how to go about, you know, pushing this motion through. We'll have to wait and see as to what the design is. Me personally, I don't like the idea of an omnibus bill for a number of different reasons. One of which is when you start adding stuff inside of a bill, those bills become bloated. And then what oftentimes happens is the representatives will wind up getting a copy of this bloated bill that's thousands of pages deep, and they get 48 hours to go through it and see whether or not it's something that they want to endorse with a yes vote or say nay with a no vote. And, you know, I have a hard time reading, you know, a comic book back to cover to cover. You know, and you're talking about the dry legislative writ that goes through committee. I don't see it. And a lot of these guys and ladies who are in Congress, you know, they're probably just rubber stamping stuff because they just don't want to have to deal with this unless, you know, they're, you know, again, I don't know because I'm not there, but the idea of omnibus just makes absolutely no sense. There's really no way for oversight, and it's an easy way just to stuff stuff through. And I'm not for it, and I'm really happy our caucus, or the Freedom Caucus rather, has pushed the idea of trying to do away with that, at least on the Republican side. So you know, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to say is this was extremely disappointing to you and me and everybody who thought at least the House was going to be, you know, keeping Congress and keeping the president in check. That's part of the checks and balances, and they hold the purse strings. It's really unfortunate, and they had so much leverage over the president. They could have. They were going to basically force him to agree to sign a bill to massively increase spending for beefing up the border. Via wall, via, you know, surveillance drones. You know, it could have been so easy to get something good out of this, and I don't think we got any. We got absolutely nothing.
Absolutely not. And I think that was by,
and we just pissed a bunch of money away to Ukraine.
that was
Probably
by
to
design.
Gaza. We got to do something on Gaza. We need to talk about Gaza too, because there's been some massive waste uncovered over there.
Yeah, that was all by design. So let's move up the food chain to federal politics, where we have just a little bit of good news. It appears that the New York Appeals Court has drafted an order to vacate over $450 million fine and reduce it down to $175 million, pending the outcome of the appeal. But that's not all. Donald Trump got an extension of an additional 10 days to come up with the $175 million via a bond or cash, or he said he was going to use cash. And now he is allowed to do business in New York, which he was prohibited from doing under the original ruling.
And his family, his sons.
Every single liberal talking head is beside themselves with rage and are trying to repackage what conservatives have been saying about the two-tiered justice system for years. They're claiming that this appeal ruling wouldn't happen to anybody else but Donald Trump. Take a watch.
I'm being told right now that that bond, that $500 million bond that had been set and that the former president had to deal with today, has now been reduced to $175 million. So that $465 million plus bond that he was looking at has now been reduced. As of right now, we're getting this breaking news. This appeals court allowing the former president to post a smaller bond of $175 million within 10 days. David, what does that tell you?
Jose, it tells me something that you and I have talked about before, and that is the playbook is different for former President Trump. We were literally talking about this the last time you and I discussed this case. I expect for them to do something for him that's different than what you see for everybody else when they go to court. So here, he's given more time to pay less money. That's what it comes down to.
And Tristan, so what does that process look like in the courtroom there?
Do we even need to ask? I mean, honestly, this is so infuriating. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know if I care what the process is that these judges are arriving at. Whatever it is, it's flawed. I can tell you that much. I mean, David put it well. This is a different process for this person. We have decided that he gets his own private court of justice.
It's like they're pissed off that their coup to remove Donald Trump for presidential contention isn't going off without a hitch. So they are admitting that there is, in fact, a two-tiered justice system, but it's run by Republicans. The lunacy of this statement is so out there that it isn't even laughable. What do you have to say about that?
Not much. It makes me happy that it's kind of blown up in their face, but what always it blew me away about Trump when we first started seeing him battling the media, back in what was that, 2016 is when
actually 15 when he actually
2015 when he
2015 when he put his bid in. Yeah.
But so he reminds me of the Marvel supervillain Sebastian Shaw from X-Men.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. He can control kinetic energy. Yeah.
Yeah, he was basically anybody that attacked him, he would absorb the energy and he would get stronger and use it against them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they call him the Teflon Don for a reason.
Absolutely.
But he's just able to absorb. I mean, stuff that would give most people a stroke many times over. It's like it seems to just make him. I don't know. It makes him happy. I don't know. It's fascinating.
It seems that way, right?
It's fascinating to watch.
It does. It seems like, every time they throw something at him and they think it's going to stick, like you said, he's Teflon, it doesn't stick. And it doesn't seem like it bothers him. I'm sure it does, right? I'm sure it does. I'm sure, get a $450 million plus judgment against you. And I'm sure that's going to have you awake at night, regardless of your financial status. But I think he's looking at it, and this is me. I think he's looking at it from the perspective of my wealth, my status right now is a small price to pay if I sit by and allow what's happening to the United States to happen. he is in a position to be able to do stuff, right? And there's quite a few of those individuals that are out there. You have Ramaswamy, you have well, pretty much anybody that was on the Republican ticket. And all these people have a lot of influence, and they feel like they have an obligation. And quite frankly, you do, right? I mean, you have a calling, and you have a following. Then you have an obligation to take Aunt May's own words. With great power comes great responsibility, and they are doing what they can to wield it and wield it on our behalf. And so I think that's an important thing. It's a just thing, and it's what we need right now to move forward.
Yeah, I always look at it. I'll leave it at this. I always look at it like whoever's being attacked from the establishment on both sides, he or she is doing something right. Tulsi Gabbard is another person who's constantly being attacked by the establishment, by the rhinos, particularly by the left, because she still is registered as a Democrat, I believe.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
She's moving quickly to the right. She's more centrist at this point, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have my favorites for Donald Trump's VP pick, but I don't think that any of the people that the pundits have put out that are in contention for the position. I don't think any of them would be a bad pick. I think there would be some that are better than others. And if you want to have nuanced conversation, I think there would be some that are better than others in specific arenas, right? So when it comes to financial arenas, I think one versus, foreign policy versus, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Trump would do well once he does his VP pick. There's quite a few of those people that would absolutely be wonderful on the cabinet, because in my personal opinion, he needs to not make the same mistake he made last time in 2016 when he came and kept some of the holdovers from the Obama administration, thinking that he was extending that fig leaf. They're not there. Don't extend the fig leaf. Wipe the slate clean. Clean out the FBI. Clean out the CIA. Get rid of the DOJ. I mean, literally get rid of them. And
that's why they're so fresh. That's why they're so desperate to get rid of him. They know he has learned his lesson. He is going to clean house.
Yeah. This is going to be the first second-term president that is not going to have a lame duck presidency, because he's actually going to be more effective this time. You're not going to be able to use the COVID hoax. You're not going to be able to use that. He is prepared for it, and I think the American people are prepared for it as well. So,
absolutely.
Again, Mike, I wanted to express a huge thank you for you coming on the show. I believe it was a huge step towards improving the content and hopefully bringing in some new viewers and, getting things moving. So this concludes today's presentation of Office of the Patriot. If you enjoy the content, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share my channel on your social media. It is appreciated, or rather our channel on social media. It is appreciated. Also, please take the time to comment. Engagement is the major metric social media platforms like YouTube and Rumble and everybody else uses to employs in their search algorithms. The more people that like and comment, the more my channel will come up with content like mine is searched for. And as always, have a blessed day and stay safe out there.